joined by the head coach of the Brantford Buccaneers, Coach Tim Clark. And, Coach, congratulations. Last Friday night, big homecoming win over the Hilliard Flashes. Let's talk a little bit about that victory.
Thank you. Yeah, it's obviously getting a homecoming win is a big deal. Not just for the program, but for the school, the community. It's a great week. With that also comes, some necessary distractions.
Oh, yeah.
Not necessarily in a negative way, but they're just there, right? Where there are things that can tend to because of the excitement and the enjoyment that the kids get from them,
Right.
maybe take away their focus just a little bit in terms of the parade, the dress up days, Big Blue Raid, things like that. But I thought the kids did a phenomenal job this week of being present for those events and enjoying them and contributing to school spirit and being a part of the community and the school for those events, but then also understanding that we had to really shift our focus back in, from 3 to 6, week on the weekdays and then
Yeah.
for 4 quarters on Friday night. And so I thought they did that and played really well. Another great night of effort, I thought, pursuing the football and played physical. So just all around, I thought it was a great night.
Yeah, and there are a lot of distractions. I mean, when you think of the pep rallies and what's going on in school and just, alumni coming back but if you don't win the game, then it's ruined for everybody. So
Right.
your players have to somehow keep that focus.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so that's what we reminded them throughout the week, and we spoke about that a little bit on the show last week leading up to it. That at the end of the week, there really it comes down to 4 quarters of football. So
Right.
we're the culminating event of homecoming week. So everything that led up to that is great. It's fun. It builds all that school spirit, and having people back in the community is
Yeah.
fantastic. For that event, but really 4 quarters of football, nothing changes once the ball's kicked off.
Yeah.
So at that point, it was going to be the preparation that we had Monday through Thursday, and then how hard we played and how clean we played for 4 quarters. And I thought we accomplished those goals.
Yeah, you guys played great. Got a big lead by halftime, coasted to that victory. Hilliard though came in, and we knew about their running attack, and your defense played great. I mean, you got to give credit to the D.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I thought obviously shutting him out in the first half,
Yeah.
tackling him really well in space, I thought was great. He got his yards on us there in the second half for sure. And we started subbing pretty early in that second half. Try to get some guys some game experience. Also understanding that after that game, we only play one more time at home in the regular season. So we wanted kids, all throughout the roster to get opportunities in that game. So we subbed pretty early and he stayed in the game and made some plays. And he's a phenomenal player. Like he's really tough to tackle. So we played him last year and he was good, but this year he's gained a little strength and he has phenomenal balance is what I saw.
Yeah.
His vision and balance were really great. So I thought especially inside backers played well reading their keys, and then he would just find a crease no matter where it was. I mean, you could tell his play was designed right, and he'd see a little gap left and just wiggle through it.
Yeah.
So he was improvising a lot, and I thought we handled that well in terms of staying home, guys on the backside, honoring the cutback and reverse potential. And so um, we talked throughout the week as well that against a really good player in the open field, we can mitigate some of that inability to tackle him by just getting numbers to the ball. So
Yeah.
I thought we pursued well, and we were physical when we got there. It was one of our more physical games I thought that we've played this year in terms of we give out little stickers for hammers and stuff, and we had quite a few plays that we reviewed in our team meeting Monday of this is a hammer, just a really good hit. So I thought we were physical and like you said, defensively generating some turnovers as
Yeah.
well. So that was great.
Well, we know about your skill kids. I mean, you got plenty of that, but the kids up front, the kids on that they're doing the dirty work up front. They really played well, especially in that first half.
Yes, absolutely. Offensively and defensively, but certainly defensively, we told them that you're going to command some double teams. That's going to happen. And you've got to hold point and keep those guys from getting to the second level and keep our linebackers clean. And they did a good job. And then like you said, our skill players did a pretty good job tackling in space.
Yeah, you guys have had a pretty good season when you look back at it. The two losses that you've had, the one in Gainesville, I feel like you were the better team that night. Should have won that game, but
Right.
sometimes the ball doesn't roll your way. And even looking back to the North Florida Educational Institution loss early in the season, if you played them again now, I feel like you're a much better club than you were, earlier, especially coming off that kickoff classic win against Dixie, and that was your first real challenge. But since then, you won two straight. You slipped at Oak Hall, but now two wins in a row again. Do you feel like this team is starting to peak, starting to find itself?
I do. I think we're starting to gel. I've told the kids that if you look at even offensive philosophy, what primary sets that we were in, we weren't really sure what we were going to be week
Mhm.
one. Coming out of the Dixie game and the kickoff classic, really everything worked. We needed
Yeah.
a football game where we had some things that didn't go our way, and a team stop us,
Yeah.
and show us what we're a little bit better at and what we struggle at. And so if you look at what I tend to call now and the offensive sets that we tend to get in, the personnel groupings, I think we've settled into some of our our comfort level of what our personnel packages should look like and what we should gravitate towards in the run and pass game. So yes, I agree with you. I think that we against North Florida Education, we were figuring out who we were a little bit, especially first test with a lot of those new kids that came in to us during the summer,
Mm.
figuring out who the playmakers were, and we just did not play well enough to win that game. I thought we were a handful of plays away from winning that football game. We could have, but we
Yeah.
were a handful of plays away from winning that game. Certainly the Oak Hall game for sure. We believe that we had that game won and didn't make the one play that we needed to make.
Right.
And so certainly there were other plays within that those 4 quarters that could have determined the outcome, but we had it to a uh, win or lose one play scenario. So we feel like we could have and should have won that game, and at that point we'd be sitting here at 5-1.
Yeah.
But we're thankful for the ups and the downs because I think that we've peaked to a level of preparation intensity because of that Oak Hall loss. After that, that's kind of spurred us along to two really good wins here.
Yeah.
So,
No doubt.
I told him today that it's tough to win a football game. At our level, it just really is. Small rural, I mean, it's tough. Just all the factors that go into it, numbers, kids playing both ways, and all of that is difficult. It's difficult to win a football game. I don't care who you were playing. There's enough that can go wrong in any given game. It's really hard to win three straight.
Yeah.
And so, especially winning a third straight and doing it on the road, long way from home, kind of against a bigger school in Interlochen, it's a challenge for us this week. And then coming off of a homecoming week, so um, that's definitely a message that we've been pushing to them so far.
Yeah, and you've mentioned just one home game left in the regular season, so you've got to go to Interlochen this week. Then you got the trip to Trenton, and then you've got Lafayette at home, which isn't an easy task with that helmet game, and then you go to Hamilton County for that last game. So some pretty good challenges left, and this is the point of the year where you're starting to get in that playoff contention and 4-2 record looking good. So really need to reel off a couple of wins and really test and find out how good you are.
Right, absolutely. I mean, this is where we want to be. We're in the top bracket. If we were to end today, we would be in the playoffs.
Right.
And so we're where we want to be, and believe that we can solidify that and even move up by winning football games and just going 1-0 1 week at a time. And so right now it's Interlochen, and that's a big challenge for us. And I think we've had good preparation so far this week. But we told the kids after Hilliard there are absolutely um, no more gimmies whatsoever. I mean,
No.
from here on out, you have the bye week, and outside of that, like you said, it's on the road. Interlochen, Trenton, and Trenton's rolling right now.
Yeah.
Mayo's obviously very, very good, and then Hamilton's a whole
Much
lot better.
improved. Yeah.
Right, Hamilton's a
Yeah.
whole lot better than they've been. So yeah, it's a tough road from here on out.
Yeah, no doubt. It's never easy, as you mentioned on Friday night, to win against anybody. I mean, that turnover factor, you
Right.
just never know.
Hmm.
Even when you're a favorite going into the game, sometimes you can get lackadaisical. Next thing you know, an interception, a fumble here, and suddenly you got a tight game going into the second half. And
Right.
so, I mean, you got to take care of your own business, despite who you're playing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. We use the phrase quite often, nameless, faceless opponents. I mean, we have to trust our preparation, trust the scouting report, and just line up and play, to our standards. So they've done a good job of that. I think getting a little bit better each week. I think as a coaching staff, we can sit down and evaluate. And you mentioned as an outsider looking in that you believe that we still played very well against Oak Hall, especially defensively well enough to win the game. So I think if you look at the Northwood Educational game, going into Weewee Hitchcock, then going into Bell, going into Oak Hall, Lake Weir, and now Hilliard, I believe truly that we've improved a little bit every week.
Yeah.
So we're looking to do that again this week, just solidify our identity and have some fun.
All right. Last week, win over Hilliard. I know you're busy coaching football. You probably didn't get a chance to watch the halftime, but you can go back on rivercountrysports.com and check out that halftime. We had put an extra camera on the field, and the pageantry was pretty cool. Nice to capture that.
That's great. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I mean Brantford is a cool little community. It's tight knit. I love our stadium atmosphere, and so I'm sure it was great. You're right. We were in the locker room, drawing up some X's and O's and
Yeah.
getting some rest. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure it was phenomenal.
But even if you don't get a chance, maybe in the off season, you can go
There
back
you
and
go.
there
Yeah,
you go.
yeah.
It's always there for you
Hmm.
on River Country. Coach, all right, we're going to take a timeout. We'll be back to talk about interlocking, get a little more into the Rams and what you're facing this Friday night. Stay with us, rivercountrysports.com. It's the Brantford Coaches Show.
You were there at the beginning. You stood behind me, guiding me through good times and bad, teaching me lessons I wouldn't appreciate until later, preparing me for the day when you couldn't be here. What you've given me, I'll carry wherever I go. And because of your planning, I know I'll go far.
Set your family up for life. Southern Farm Bureau Life Insurance. Your friends for life.
Farm Bureau Insurance, serving Florida for over 70 years. In Suwannee County, you'll find Farm Bureau in Brantford and in Live Oak. In Brantford on Drain Street, phone 935-1274. And in Live Oak on Dowling Avenue, call 362-1274. Real service, real people, Farm Bureau Insurance.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Van Carpet One. For 78 years, we've been your local family-owned and operated floor covering store, and we can't wait to serve you. Let's go check out some of the stuff we've got and say hey to the guys.
Hey guys, this is Michael Van here at Van Carpet One. Wanted to show you our huge display of carpet. Got about 1,000 rolls for you that we can order. We also keep about 100 in stock that are on clearance, so please come down and give us a visit. We appreciate it.
Come in and see the largest tile collection in North Florida. Van Carpet One has every tile you could possibly imagine. If you can't find it here, they don't make it. Guys, take a look at this. This is just some of our options in waterproof vinyl plank, where we have the largest selection anywhere around here, including over 70 pallets in stock, ready to go right now. Come in and see our fantastic selection of elegant hardwood too, followed up by fantastic service that you expect from a company like Van Carpet One.
Come on in and see us.
We can't wait to serve you. And that's a boom shakalaka.
Back here on the Buccaneers Coaches Show, Wayne Littrell along with Coach Tim Clark. And Coach, last night, and the reason we're taping this on Wednesday and instead of Tuesday, as we normally do, you had a JV game last night, and I understand it was a pretty thrilling game to wrap up the JV season.
It was. It was kind of an impromptu scheduling for that JV game. They were supposed to be done already last week on Thursday. But with the Hilliard game last week and Coach Yancey being at Hilliard, who is a good friend of mine and coached for me for a few years at Brantford before he went to Hilliard, he contacted me and said, "Hey, look, how's your JV? In terms of scheduling, they had a couple guys or a couple teams drop them, and they were looking for one more game, so we threw it together on Tuesday night, and we were able to play at home, and it was a great football game. It was 6-0 Hilliard for." Literally, I mean, we played 10-minute quarters on JV, so it was 10-0 Hilliard for, or I mean 6-0 Hilliard for like 39 minutes,
Wow.
and 30 seconds, and we scored right at the very end, and and didn't convert the 2-point conversion, went to overtime, and ended up winning in overtime. So it
Wow.
was phenomenal. They won 12-6, and I thought it was a great way for those younger guys to end the season.
Yeah, great come from behind victory in overtime. You can't beat that. Now, how does that work as far as JV kids? Will there be some coming up to the varsity level now, or?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So with us being a combined campus, we're 6 through 9 on JV. And so the ninth graders, there's a handful of them that have been dual rostering with me already so far this season. So they get their 6 quarters for the week. So they can play 2 on JV and 4 with me, or they can play vice versa. If they play a full game on JV, then I can get them for a couple quarters with us. So those guys are certainly coming up. But then I offer the open invitation to any ninth graders when the JV season ends to come up with me as well. So a bunch of those guys are. A lot of them were actually even at practice today after playing last night.
Awesome.
So I thought that said a lot about them. So yeah, that adds to our numbers a little bit, helps with scout, and certainly there's some good football players in that group. Maybe we can mix them in on special teams, and you never know, maybe get a rotational guy out of them.
Yeah, and it helps them. I mean, just with experience, just being a part of varsity, even if they don't get in, but if they get a chance to get in and practicing, trying to simulate the other team, and that gives you more numbers in that respect. So
Right.
now that's a big jump there when you're talking about sixth graders that haven't quite developed yet, and ninth, through ninth grade. That's tough.
Yes, it absolutely can be. And so the coaching staff does a good job of, just being smart, being aware of that developmental difference and gap that can be there for some middle schoolers compared to freshmen. And so they were aware of that in practice and certainly in games. We don't put them in any bad situations, but we've also got some tough young little kids, man,
Yeah.
that we've had some that don't care if they're going up against a freshman and they're in sixth grade. They will strap it up and hit. So that's always good to see. And like you said, it's the same mentality as those freshmen. The earlier we can get them into the system, into the program, the more they can learn and get ready for what they're going to be in once they get a little older.
It's pretty wild sometimes to look back at kids and the way they were in sixth grade, and then that growth spurt will hit at some point.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
that's right.
Yeah.
So, you see a lot of
Yeah.
maturity, and it can happen quickly when that spurt starts.
Yes, hopefully. That's
So,
the goal, at
yeah,
least. That's the hope.
yeah, and then you got to grow into your body and get used
Right.
to it. So it's
Right.
yeah. But anyway, the Interlochen Rams, the big test coming up this Friday night. Rams come in, and I don't know a lot about them, but 2-4. They opened up the season win at Keystone Heights, and they lost 4 in a row. But then they got a big win last week over West Oaks Academy out of Orlando, 38-18. So tell me a little bit about this Ram squad. What you see on film. What do you think about the challenge?
Well, when I look at them on film, they're very similar, in my opinion, to Lake Weir. So our
Okay.
mentality going into that is going to be much of the same. They've got some size up front, got some really good athletes. They're more pass oriented than Lake was. They're very balanced. So they're pretty much 50-50 in the pass to run ratio. Quarterback does a good job delivering the football. They've got one really good playmaker in six.
Mm-hmm.
But they put him all over the football field to try to get him the ball. So much so that even a couple games here, he's been in a hard cast, it looks like on the film, and they still try to get him the
Wow.
ball. So he's definitely their guy. Outside of him, number 13 and number 3, quarterback's thrown for just under 800 yards for the season, 774, something like that, and out of that yardage, number 6, number 13, and number 3 constitute like 720 or 730 of those yards. So they're trying to get the football to those 3 guys as their primary targets. And like I said, it's out of those 3, it's definitely 6.
Yeah. Quarterback number 8, Ben Aguayo, basically a pocket passer. He doesn't want to get out of the pocket. He scrambled and taken some sacks and negative 13 rushing yards when it's all totaled up. But
Right.
throwing the football, you mentioned 774 yards, 45 of 86. But that number 6 kid, you're going to see him in the backfield. He scored 5 touchdowns running the football, but he's also caught a couple of passes for touchdowns. So over 300 yards receiving the football. So you really got to be aware of where he lines up in the field and make sure you account for him.
Right. Yeah, for sure. That's when we look at their breakdown, he's in yardage terms their leading rusher and their leading receiver.
Right.
And when you start to break that down film wise, you think, okay, well, that probably is indicative of backfield passing, right? So they're running them on flares, they're leaking them to the flat, but no, when they throw him the ball, they line him up at receiver, and when they hand him the ball, he's at running back. So they move him around. So it's really going to be identifying where he's at, and when we're in man coverage, is making sure that we don't have a matchup liability when when we're in man coverage, and then just being aware of the different ways that they can try to get him the ball, neutralize that threat, and then tackle well with the other guys that they're trying to get the football to.
And then they have when they do split Phelps out, number 6, they've got a couple of other running backs. They got a freshman kid, number 5, that looks pretty special. He's gotten 36 carries, 181 yards, touchdowns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a good athlete too. Younger kid. They'll actually put him at the Q some and direct snap,
Okay.
and they'll do Q run game with him at the quarterback. He's thrown it a couple times, but when they throw the football, they want number 8 in there. And like I said, he's 52-ish% completion percentage. But they'll put the football in the air. So I think in the past 2 games, they've snapped the ball 94 times and they've thrown it 45 of those 94 snaps. So they're going to put the football in the air. So with who we have at the skill positions and what we like to do defensively. For us, we look at that as an opportunity. If the football's in the air, then we're going to try to create ways that we get guys in position to intercept the football and create turnovers.
And they like to throw the ball 140 yards per game through the air, 96 on the ground. You guys are pretty balanced, which is impressive. 135 rushing yards a game, 173 passing yards. So, I mean, as a coach, you're always looking for that balance, and you've got a two-way threat at quarterback that helps a lot.
Yes, it absolutely does. And last week I was really against Hilliard. I was pleased to be able to establish the run, with our running backs and take some of that load off of Trent that we put on him in the Lake Weir game. Just schematically, what Lake Weir gave us in the box, we wanted to run the football, and by numbers, we knew we needed to try to run the Q. That would be the most effective method. So we did. And then he got banged up right there towards the end of the game. So going into the Hilliard game, we wanted to eliminate him having to run the football unless it was absolute necessity in a short yardage situation. So I was glad to see that we generated what we needed out of the run game with the running backs, and then certainly in the passing game, he was very efficient,
Yeah.
and that allowed us to be fairly balanced again, like you said, which is the goal.
Yeah. Trent so far in the year, 1,037 yards through the air, and then another 313 on the ground. He's averaging almost 6 yards a carry, and he's thrown 10 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I mean, I don't know how you have much better of a season, just a sophomore, but he's really coming into his own as a quarterback.
Right. Through 6 games, I think what jumps out to me is that almost 70% completion percentage.
Yeah.
Because we do throw a lot of quicks and bubbles and things like that, but we do take shots too. With Maurice Fought,
Mhm.
we hit some big ones too. TC Smith in the middle of the field and on the outside Friday night, and so to have a 70% completion percentage while running some schemes that require rollout and hitting vertical routes down the field is not usually typical. When you approach that 70% completion percentage, you expect to turn on the film and see a whole bunch of quicks, screens, intermediate routes, things like that. So he's doing a real good job of delivering the football accurately, even at depth. And so we're just trying to keep that going, trying to keep him upright, certainly, and and keep giving him opportunities to find guys in space and deliver the ball.
You mentioned Vaught, number 0, as you're watching the Buccaneers, but I was looking at your stats, and is this a misprint? 40 catches, 700 yards?
That's
I
correct.
mean, wow.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So had Jamie from the Lake City Reporter text me today and said, "Man, what I'm looking at, I think that Vaught, if he stays on this pace, is going to absolutely shred any school records we have for basically all receiving categories." And so with that, I mean, we can only obviously go by what I have access to in the Max Preps era. Certainly, we can look at old newspaper clippings or something from
Yeah.
back in the day, but I mean, I'm assuming that certainly in those heydays of Brantford in the 70s, they weren't throwing the ball, as much as we are now. So I think it's probably
Well,
safe
they
to
run in the
say,
veer back then.
right, exactly. So it's probably safe to say, as he continues through the season, stays healthy, and keeps producing, that he'll be the school record holder in most receiving categories. He's an electric guy with the ball in his hands,
He is.
and certainly we have to keep creating ways to get the football to him and generate one-on-ones.
8 touchdowns this year, and he's averaging 17 and a half yards per catch. I mean, that's pretty special. And being a senior, I know it's probably not time to think about it, but has there been any interest in him as far as continuing his football career?
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to get his shot.
Good.
We've expressed to him that he's just got to keep producing good film, keep producing good film and getting it out to the right places. And, there's no way that he doesn't get an opportunity to play at the next level with the ability that he has. And he's also just an extremely hard worker, phenomenal attitude. He's positive all the time, so on top of the athletic ability, which there's, millions of kids out there with athletic ability. He's one that, as a coaching staff, when guys come to evaluate him and look at him, we're going to be able to place our name on him and our program's name on him and say, you won't have to worry about this kid, in terms of effort, in terms of attitude, in terms of coachability. So he's top notch in those regards.
And as more teams and more defenses are learning about him, you're going to get special coverage on him, and they're going to try to take him out of the game plan. But that just opens up opportunities for, I don't know, Smith or Jones or Schultz or maybe James coming out of the backfield. So that'll open up them one-on-one coverage. And you got to get creative as coaches if they take that if they have a defense that can take him away.
Right, absolutely. I mean, and that's where it goes back to, as you mentioned before, the goal to be balanced. So if they contribute a lot of their defensive scheme to neutralizing him on the perimeter, then we need to be able to run the football with whatever they give us in the box. In the downhill run game. If they dedicate two guys in coverage to try to bracket him or double team him in any sort of way, then we have to be able to recognize that at the quarterback position, deliver the football where we have softer coverage. So, like you said, that is going to open up opportunities for Tripp, whose role has grown for us offensively since the O'Call game, really. And TC showed us last week. I mean, he was a guy that has been really unselfish in the perimeter run blocking game. He's played a lot of defense. He's blocked out of the backfield, and he's been waiting for that big game where he kind of exploded with the ball in his hand. So it was good to see him break 100 yards the other night, and hopefully, like you said, as Reese draws a lot of that attention, it's gonna make him even more dangerous.
How are you as far as the healthier team? I know these guys going both ways, Ironman football. You get nicks and bruises and everything as the season goes on. But overall, what is the healthier team, and what does Ollie look like at this point?
Overall, we've been really blessed to be in the position that we're at right now. We've got a couple guys getting some things checked out. That the jury's still out on them, but we've been, for the most part, largely healthy in terms of the starting 11 that we expect to be on the field. In terms of Ollie, he was still just not feeling himself the other night, and had the tendency to get a little bit frustrated because he's a big play guy. He wants the big play. He wants to contribute in those massive run opportunities, right? He wants to get in the open field and
Sure.
score touchdowns. This is what running backs want to do. But I just impressed him the other night. I said, man, you're a young guy, and we're putting a lot on you to be our running back. But he still averaged right at 5 yards a carry the other night, and that can be a phenomenal night of football for a running back, right? If that's what we're doing and we hand him the ball 20 times, there's his 100-yard game,
Yeah.
right? So he needs to be content with that and understand that we value those tough yards that he'll give us, and I know he will, just as much as a big play. And I think he understood that and has had some really good practices this week, and it looks even closer, to that kickoff classic Ollie, that we're waiting to see. We need him to have that confidence to be able to put the foot in the dirt and cut. And I thought we saw flashes of that Friday night. We just didn't want to put too much of a workload on him when we knew the game was in hand.
Sometimes you just got to remember he's just a freshman.
Absolutely.
I mean, so what a career in front of him, but
Right.
He's averaging over 6 yards a carry. I mean, as is. So even though he's been limited, I mean, he's getting the job
Right.
done when he gets his chances.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not running downhill. I know he'll do that. He'll get behind his pads. He wants to feel the freedom to be able to cut and be elusive like he knows he can. And with the nature of a first time bad ankle sprain that he suffered in week 1, that can be a lingering thing. And so I just had to reassure him, say, look, buddy, you might not feel totally 100% until spring ball, until this season has ended and you have sat on the couch for a while, because we're practicing every day and we're lifting weights, and you're playing every Friday. So he's got to understand that even 90% Ollie, 85% Ollie, we just want the best Ollie we can get, because that's we'll take the very best he'll give us.
How tough is that? I mean, you having been a player, I mean, you're during the course of a season, you're usually not 100%, but somehow you've got to give everything that you can. I mean, how tough is that? Facing injuries, facing bumps and bruises, and not feeling that you have it all together, but you still got to go out there and perform.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's certainly there was really never a time, especially in high school, that I felt like I was
Right.
100% once the season got going. But like we tell the kids, you have to understand the difference between hurt and injured, and understand that the vast majority of football players at almost every position, especially at the level that we play, are going to be playing through some hurt, and that's different than playing through injury. We're going to be aware of that. We're going to be cognizant of that and take care of you for sure. We have the resources to do that, but we've got to be willing to play through some pain.
Yeah, I was asking one of the players at Swanee the difference between he's a good baseball player and the difference between going from football to baseball, baseball to football. He said ice baths.
Yeah.
So
Right.
you
Right.
can kind of understand that football's a tough sport, man.
Yep.
It's not for the weak.
Nope, it is not.
No doubt. All right, we talked a little bit about the offense. Defensively, I was looking at your defensive stats, and a couple of things popped out at me. Number 5, the Devin Waller, along with number 50, Wyatt Derringer. I mean, they're in almost every tackle. These
Absolutely.
two guys, 52 tackles total each to lead the team.
Right. So they're guys that just have a nose for the football, and it seems like no matter what run scheme somebody's running, when you stop the tape, when the whistle's blown, they're close by, or they're on the pile, or they're on the bottom of the pile, or they're airborne trying to get onto the pile. So, and that's not an exaggeration. So, um, you know, Devin plays on the weak side of the defense at the outside linebacker position, and then Wyatt plays on the strong side inside linebacker position. So it's really a really great thing for our defense to have, strong anchors like that, noses for the ball on each side of the defense, on the strength and on the weak side. And like I said, they complement those other backers in there really, really well. But they find the ball and they get to it and certainly add on, which is what we want to see.
Yeah, and the linebacker position, I mean, it's the toughest position on the defense. You got the guys up front have to do their job, and then they have to come in and seal. And that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, that takes a special type of talent.
Right, absolutely. Especially a lot of the teams that we play are trying to get offensive linemen to the second level.
Sure.
They're pulling, they're trapping, they're doing things to gap scheme big bodies to smaller bodies. And so, in our defense, if you're playing inside linebacker, you've got to be able to be willing to take on offensive linemen, and shed blocks. And so a lot of times you're going to do that at a size disadvantage. So both of those guys are really physical dudes, are strong guys that play well with great pad level, and to a certain extent, everybody on the football team would agree that they play just a little bit nasty, which is good.
That's what you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then reading the run in the past, I was looking at your stat page as far as interceptions. Vaught with 2 interceptions. He has all the touchdowns. What's the bigger thrill, do you think? Picking the ball off or scoring on offense?
I don't know. You have to ask him that, I guess. But it's just another one of those elements of creating good tape for him. I've told him, look, your goal. You don't know what you are at the next level. I think you're a receiver, possibly in the slot because of your height. But for us, he's playing on the outside because of his speed. For sure. But he's also a great DB. He's a really good cover guy. He'll stick his face in there on the perimeter if he needs to set the edge. And so, I told him at the beginning of the season, I want to limit your defensive reps because of what you mean to us offensively. But for his future, we definitely are attempting to get some good defensive clips out there too, just so that his tape has a lot of variation to it. He needs to look like a Swiss Army knife, a really athletic Swiss Army knife when he puts his tape out there for the next level.
Yeah. The Jones kid, too, Arcavian Jones, he has 2 picks on the season. So he's had a nice year helping you out on the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got good length, good speed, and a lot of experience. He's played varsity football since he was in 9th grade. So, he knows the coverages and does a good job with his eyes and is a physical guy in coverage as well. He likes to get his hands on receivers and disrupt routes. And so that's generated some opportunities for him to pick off the football, which has led to, for us as a defense, 6 games in, we have 11 turnovers, I think.
7 picks.
7 picks and four fumbles. So that's quite a few turnovers in 6 games.
Yeah.
And so those things are really big momentum swings. And really those interceptions in the situations that they came in, the other night was, Reese picked one off, I think their second play or something of the game, to set us up in a scoring position early in that football game and kind of set the tone. TC picked one off on a drive where they were trying to put some points on the board before the half, and we were kind of backed up in prevent coverage. And then some of the other ones throughout the season, our interceptions have come at some really, really vital times. One of our Arcavians was in that really critical situation against Bell, where they had some momentum right before the half and scored, and then they came out, kicked the onside kick, and they got the football, and they were in scoring position again. And we were in a bind, and he got a pick. So I think a Trip Schultz picking the football off right before the half, and no call, to keep them out of the end zone. I think they were on the 4-yard line.
Yeah.
So yeah, our interceptions have not just come from, first down go balls of teams taking a shot. They've come from some pretty high pressure situations. So those kids are locking down, trusting their keys, and finding the ball.
Yeah, and we're going to need that this week. That's why I bring it up.
Yeah,
Playing a team that
100%.
likes to throw the ball, so nice to have a couple of picks to turn that momentum the other way.
Right, 100%. And they're kids who they want interceptions. They love that as DBs. Playing a team like we were Hitchcock that week, they're like, oh, we might get bored. I was like, trust me, you're not going to get bored. But certainly this week is not one where they're going to get bored. We're going to see some 3-by-1 open. We're going to see empty. We're going to see a lot of 10 personnel with guys in space. And like I said, 45 pass reps and 90-something snaps in 2 games is a high percentage. And those weren't in situations where, because when I'm tendency reporting somebody, I always kind of take into consideration, was it an end of game situation where they got the ball? Okay, we're throwing it every down now because it's an emergency situation. Are they coming from behind so that changes their tendency offensively? No, these were all pretty just solid, competitive football games, and they remained very, very balanced. So we can expect on any given snap they could run or pass the ball, and we're going to have opportunities to try to go get it.
Got to be ready. Brantford at Interlochen this Friday night. All the action right here on River Country Sports. Our airtime 7:15. We kick off at 7:30. So join us this Friday night. If you can't make the trip, we'd love you to be there in person and root on the Bucks. But if you do, bring your phone, and there you go. You got an instant replay right in your hand. You can't beat it. All right, we'll be back right after this with more from Coach Clark. It's the Brantford Coaches Report here on RiverCountrySports.com.
Good afternoon. My name is Tammy Neal. I am one of the executive producers here at River Country Sports. Today, I am honored to be in studio with Doug Mabey. Doug, we are so glad that you could join us today. Tell us a little bit about why you're here, and we'll talk about the opportunities that you're bringing to our community.
Okay. I wanted to share a little bit about Alex's life and the fact that we're going to be creating a scholarship in his name at Swanee High School. First time we'll be using it will be next year in the Senior Awards program. And just wanted to let people know about it and just tell a little bit about who Alex was.
So not this year's graduating class, but next year's.
It'll be 2026.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but I knew Alex way back in middle school, and a lot of people around town have had a huge outpouring of love for Alex because of the way you and your wife raised him to be a wonderfully appropriate young man. And I met Alex in the esports arena. He helped us at Swanee Middle School get the first year started. And, without students like him, we would not have been able to have moved forward. And so he has a very special place in my heart because of all of that. That was a very interesting year. And then we wound up into the COVID stuff, and things kind of changed for esports for us with Alex.
He was a little competitive, wasn't he?
Just a little bit. But, I remember a couple of competitive parents sitting behind him as well.
I don't know.
I have footage of that.
Uh-oh. Okay, guilty.
Yes. But, that's what our program needed to get started. And you guys were very instrumental in helping us and making sure now that for, 7 years, maybe 8, we'll be able to provide that opportunity to all our middle schoolers. And, that's part of his legacy.
It was fun. Great memories.
Yes. In that little tiny room that got very, very hot. And the spill out into the hallways. And
Right.
So tell us more about Alex.
Well, as you know, he passed on Wednesday, 5:30 in the morning out by Dowling Park in a single car accident. And as you can imagine, that's devastating to the family. But through the whole process, we've been learning so much about who he was. I've been saying that he had a little ministry going on. It seemed like every one of his peers, past graduates, younger underclassmen, said, he just called me yesterday, or he called me 2 days ago to see how his school was going, how's work doing, how's college. He reached out to so many people in the last couple of weeks or months. And that was his heart.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know how you could be as a father and not realize that, but you see what he is at the house, and you know, as a parent, you bring a child up the way you want them to go, and not embarrass the family.
Right.
Well, as far as I know, Alex never embarrassed the family. In fact, he really made the family look good, and it wasn't because he was a nice person. It was because he loved Jesus Christ as his Savior. And that's, you know, that's how we brought him up. And he lived it. He lived it every day. And that's what we want people to know. That's what the scholarship is for. It's the village set up an account for us to help us with expenses. And this is how good God is. Somebody paid all of the expenses. And now we've picked out a place to put his ashes. And somebody paid for that. So I just feel like God wants us to use that money to start something to honor Alex and his life and help other kids just like him. So I don't know if you want me to go on more about the scholarship.
You may go on about whatever you need to speak about.
So I had a thought immediately, shortly right after the accident, that I wanted to honor his life. And when I found out that people were helping so much, I said, well, you know, we've got to take this and make some good out of it, to continue his legacy.
Yeah.
So I had a thought, well, he loved soccer. He played soccer since he was 5 years old. I coached him a couple of years in a row, and he played soccer all the way up through high school. He was mostly a defender, played keeper quite a bit, did some phenomenal things, had one of the best goals against averages in Suwannee County history, probably like the 4th or 5th as far as they've been keeping records. And he was a forward too. He scored goals, not all the time, but scored some pretty amazing goals. And that's just the way he was as a person. He was a competitor. He gave his all. He just worked hard, encouraged others, and took on weightlifting. Started weightlifting in his sophomore year. We always said we wished he had started earlier because he could have done a lot more. But he did a lot in the time he was there. Tate Van, I forget his last name, but Tate was one of his mentors, and Tate wanted him to break his records. And Alex said his junior year, I'm breaking those records. And he did. He broke those records his senior year. And I won't bore you with the numbers, but they were pretty heavy weights.
Go ahead, bore us with the numbers.
I don't know exactly. I was gonna bring him with me, but you know, for those of you who aren't numbers people, it would be, you know. So, but he pushed it. He did the best he could, and he didn't verbalize it, you know, saying this, I'm doing this to honor God, but we know that's why he was doing it, because that's the way he was brought up. That's what he was encouraged to do, and I think he did a pretty good job.
I think he did too. So tell me a little bit more about the scholarship itself. How can people contribute if they want to help make this last longer? Because I know it's only going to last as long as there's money in the account.
Right. Well, Alex worked at the village, and when he went from there to Smith Brothers in town, he got a check from the village because they automatically start a retirement account, and he transferred those over into a Roth IRA. And we're going to take that Roth IRA and turn it into a scholarship. And he had a good sum of money in there, and the money that was donated in his name at the village, we're going to take it and roll it over into that. And my wife and I are in discussions right now as to, you know, how much for each scholarship, and we're still in the early stages of that. We don't really need to know until March, but you know, things cost so much, and so we're thinking somewhere, you know, $500 to $1,000 per person. But basically, it'll be anybody with a 3.0 GPA that wants to play college soccer or college weightlifting, or lift with weights in college, or this is another thing. We want anybody who wants to go into the ministry, because we feel like that was Alex's heart, and he would want that to be part of it. And going into ministry is a rare thing, but somebody who's dedicated to do that, it costs a lot of money. So we want to try to help with that. And there's going to be parameters that are involved. You know, they'll have to write an essay as to why they think they should be getting the scholarship. You know, just like any other scholarship. I'm getting some help from the high school and a couple other people that have set up scholarships to see how they went about it. So we're still in the beginning stages, but we've got a good chunk of money already. And if people want to donate, there's an account at First Federal Bank under his name. It's called the Alex Mabee Memorial Fund, excuse me. And they can donate right to that through Zelle. I'm trying to keep things separate. I don't want them sending money to me because I don't want to muddy that water, you know. But if they want to contact me on Messenger, they can do that, and I'll give them more instructions. But it's on the obituary. It has the addresses on any of those where they can send a check. It's not as online or digital as I'd like it to be, but it can still get done. It's a little old school, you know. But if people want to do it bad enough, they'll figure it out.
And they can walk into a First Federal.
They can,
and
yes.
make that deposit directly if they need to.
Yep. So that's what we're looking for. I'm excited about the opportunity. I think it'll be a great opportunity for some other student athletes who want to continue on, or somebody who wants to go into the ministry and serve God the rest of their life.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate you coming in and talking to us today. So if you are interested, please reach out. This video is going to be on our website and in our YouTube channel for a good long while now. And we will put the information, you'll see it below, on how you can find out more and how you can reach out to Mr. Doug and see if you are interested in contributing in any way. And thank you so much for coming in.
Can I give a little closing
You may.
comment?
We will let Doug take it out.
Okay. If you knew Alex and you knew his heart, he would want me to say this, that if you don't know Jesus Christ as your Savior, you need to make that decision. It's the best decision you could ever make. It'll be life-changing for you. And, I don't know where you are in your spiritual journey, but Jesus loves you. God created you for a purpose, and my purpose, and everybody's purpose is to try to spread the gospel and tell the good news of Jesus Christ. So consider that. There's probably someone in your life that could talk to you a little bit more about it. If you don't have somebody, contact me. I know a lot of people. There's churches all throughout Suwannee County that'll tell you the same thing. It's the best decision you could make. So consider that as you go forward in your life.
Thank you so much. And thank you for bringing us Alex.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And with that, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you on the football field.
Excellence in academic and clubs. Tradition, family, future. Foundations for lifelong learning. Leadership begins here. Careers start here. Curiosity meets opportunity. Building the leaders of tomorrow. Learning begins with love. One district, every student, every day. The Suwannee County School District, my choice for high-quality education.
Hey, appreciate you tuning in tonight, watching the Buccaneer Coaches Show. Wayne Littrell filling in for Jackson Jones tonight. He's got the night off. He'll be with you on Friday for the game at Interlochen along with Stephen Jones, and they'll bring you all the action here on River Country. Talking to Coach Clark, and Coach, I was looking at the FHSAA rankings. And I can't say I fully understand the formula, but if the season were to end today, right now you're the 14 seed in the rural division, and you would go to Chiefland, the 3 seed.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So it's a confusing process. A couple of years ago they went to completely, max preps power rankings generated, rankings. So the FHSA apparently has a slightly varied formula they use, but it's based off of the max preps power ranking. They don't tell us what all the magic ingredients go into that formula, so that's a discussion for another day. But we've preached to the kids that it's just going 1-0 1 week at a time is all we can do. Win football games and let the rest of it fall where it does.
Yeah, that pretty much it's all you control is the game in front of you. So you keep winning, you're going to climb those rankings, and it has to do with wins and losses. It also has to do with your opponent's wins and losses. Has to
Right.
do with your strength of schedule. For example, you take a Madison team that is playing much bigger schools, and even though they have a losing record at this point, they're 10th in the rankings because of that strength of schedule. So that can help a team out, but you can't take away the magic formula, and that's just win ball games.
Right, and that's it. It doesn't factor in point differential. It doesn't factor in home and away or historical wins or losses. It's that year's record, and then your opponent's record, and then your opponent's records that factor into that. So, it's just all we could control, like you said, is winning one football game at a time, and then just trying to climb that bracket to get in the top half where potentially we could host or, not be in the situation where we were last year, coming into the 16 seed, making the
Yeah.
playoffs, but, having to go to Hawthorne and play, a team that ultimately went to the state championship game and nearly won it. Right.
Yeah.
So, and has won it,
Yeah,
a
recently,
few
yeah.
times in the
That's
past
right.
few years. So, that's the goal. Just keep winning and try to climb into the top half of that bracket.
Right now, Bluntstown is the top seed in the rural division, followed by Taylor County. And I didn't even know Taylor County was in the rural division, so that's a new one on me. And then Chiefland, number 3, followed by Pahokee, Williston, Hawthorne, Lafayette, Trenton, Fort Meade. So you've got a couple of teams there in front of you that you're facing in the next few weeks that can really help you out in these rankings if you can somehow get those victories.
Right, absolutely. I mean, you look at a couple of them, for example, Trenton and Fort White. They're playing tough football games this week.
Mhm.
Fort White and Mayo play each other
That's
here
right.
coming up. So there's going to be some things that cause some shifting around in that bracket for sure. And really, what we focus on are those teams in our area that when we were in regions, they were in our regions. So, that's what we're looking at. That's what we're tracking. But at the end of the day, like you said, it's just about Brantford for us.
Yeah, I was taking a look at the schedule this week, and so just to pick your brain on some of these games coming up, you mentioned Fort White. That's this week. Fort White at Lafayette, so that'll be a pretty good game as the Indians come in to take on the Hornets.
Right. And so that's going to affect one of those football teams ahead of us either way. We play Mayo, so if they were to win, that increases our strength of schedule. If Fort White were to win, it would be interesting to see where Mayo would drop to. So, if something's going to give with those two teams that are above both of them being above us and playing each other.
Yeah, Fort White is at number 13, right above you
Right.
in the state rankings. Some other games of interest. You got Pace going to Madison. That'd be an interesting game coming all the way from the Panhandle. Again, a bigger school facing the Cowboys.
Right. I mean, that's where they are as a program. Coach Harris has got them rolling over there, and they've been good for a long time, and that makes scheduling difficult. So they're loading them up with some big programs to try to get ready for the playoffs.
Hamilton County team you have on the schedule, they're 500, 3-3, which is much improved from where they've been. They go to PK Young and are favored to win that game in Gainesville.
Right. I would imagine they'll win that game.
Also, Trenton, you mentioned them, 4-1. They are hosting 5-0 Oak Hall. That'll be an interesting game to watch.
Yes, that's definitely one that we're going to be ready to get the tape on and start to break down just in terms of it should be a really good football game because I think both are good football teams and the style of play that they want to play with. I mean, they're both downhill under center,
Yeah.
some option type football. And so that'll be interesting to watch. And then also to get a really good gauge on where Trenton's at with them coming up.
Taylor County, we mentioned them, 5-0. They take on Tallahassee McClay, which is also an undefeated ball club.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one too, for sure.
Have to keep an eye on that one. And some teams that you've already seen this season. Bell is at Duval Charter. Don't know much about them, but they're 0-6.
Right.
So Bell favored in that one. North Florida Educational Institution, they were going to host Episcopal this week, and that'll be an interesting game. Hilliard is at Old Plank. No idea.
Right, that's a Jacksonville
Okay.
private school. Yes, I think they're a second year program maybe. But the good football coach there, I know the coach there. He was at Eagles View for a while, so certainly them, North Florida Educational and Bell. We're rooting for those guys to go 3-0 this week because that just helps us.
I don't know if you saw last week, we talked about the running back from Hilliard that, the week before they played you, I mean, he stacked up some yards. But this past week, Bowles running back Xander Edwards, He ran for 522 yards. This is a single game. Set a single game record in the state of Florida. 8 touchdowns in last week's game against Baldwin. 73-49 was the final score in that one.
Right. Yeah. That game, I'm assuming, took 5 hours.
Must have.
Yeah.
And he broke Derrick Henry's old record. Who, of course, went on to great things and
Right.
in upper levels of college football at Alabama. But he played for Yulee High School
Right.
back in the day. So and now in the NFL. But you never know where this kid can go. And I understand he's got some lineage as well. With his dad having played in the NFL.
Gotcha.
So.
Well, that is a lot of yards.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if just to see that in person or
Right.
just to achieve that. Those offensive linemen might have been proud that night.
Yeah, the defense probably not so much.
Yeah, not so much. Yeah, Swiss cheese there.
Yeah.
All right, college football. Let me ask you this: Friday night college football. What are your thoughts?
Well, to be honest, last week, my collegiate leanings because of my alma mater, I had no idea that Florida State was playing last Friday night. And then I get home and I still didn't know. And I woke up the next day to all these text messages from my fellow Gators about, just dragging Florida State for losing to Virginia and in overtime.
Yeah,
And the
double overtime.
The field storming and all that, and just kicked myself because I came home, went to bed, and didn't turn it on while it was going on. So.
I did see the end of that game after our high school game and watching the fields. I never seen anything like that.
No.
I mean, they were over that wall before the kids could even get up, out of the end zone.
Yeah, the ball was still spinning.
Yeah,
So
that's crazy.
to answer your question, I like Friday night college football when Florida State loses.
Okay. I'm not a fan of listen, Friday night is high school football.
Right.
Saturday is college
Right,
football.
yeah.
And then Sunday for the pros.
Right.
That's tradition.
Yes.
And now you've got this week we got 6 games on Friday night, including
Really?
USF in action against Charlotte. So that's crazy.
Well, maybe there will be some people trying to tune into college and then turn on River Country Sports and watch the Bucks. So.
I like that idea. We've got some noon games Saturday. Navy is hosting Air Force. That'll be an interesting game. Go Navy. Also, Army is at UAB. You've got Georgia trying to bounce back. I wouldn't want to be Kentucky this week between the hedges.
No, that's probably not a good place to be.
Probably
if you're
not.
Kentucky, yeah.
What do you give the chances for the Florida Gators? Your Gators are at home. They've got Texas. I mean, that schedule is brutal. And now 9th-ranked Texas coming to town.
Right. Well, Texas, from what I've seen, has some holes. I mean, Arch Manning, we talked about at the beginning of the year, and I said I wasn't really sold on him, and that's kind of been the general consensus. But however, that's also been the general consensus on DJ Lackway. So, we just don't know what we're gonna see. Defense, I think, is elite, especially for the competition that we've had in the SEC.
For sure.
And so I think we can stop them for sure. It's just gonna be a matter of if we can score. Can we score 24 points? I think that might be what it takes.
Yeah, it's going to be a defensive struggle. Texas only a 6.5-point favorite, and they're the ranked team coming in against a 1-3 team. But that Gator defense, a lot of respect for them. And if you can just get a little offense.
That's right.
Yeah, I'll be pulling for the Gators. What about Vanderbilt at Alabama? Alabama 10.5-point favorites. Vandy undefeated.
So everybody was kind of panicking when Alabama lost the opener. But I thought at that time I would not be surprised at all if they ended up sneaking into the playoffs at the end of the year just because of who they had down the pipe. And they looked really good. They looked really good last week, and that's obviously a big win. So I think they're going to roll Vandy, and I think they're going to have a pretty good end of their season. They're starting to click a little bit, and I wouldn't be surprised if they end up being a playoff team at the end.
Yeah, should be a good matchup. I'm going to tune that one in. I'll be flipping back and forth at 3:30 on Saturday afternoon. Then the night game Saturday night, 2 teams that you don't care for, but just picking your brain, having played college football, being a coach, Miami and FSU. What are your thoughts in Tallahassee Saturday night?
Honestly, I just hope it's like a triple overtime game with like 11 turnovers. The worst thing it could be for me is a blowout either direction, or a game that ends at 10-3. I don't want that. I just want to be entertaining, just really, really good, and then I don't know, maybe the lights go out and it'd be a tie. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
But I would probably say because of where I went to school, I don't know if I could say I can root for Miami.
That's tough for you.
That's really, really tough.
They've got orange in their colors, though.
Yeah,
That helps a
maybe.
little, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Goes better with green than blue, but my opinion.
Yeah, I just cannot root for Florida State. It's just not allowed. So
Well, Miami's only a 4.5-point favorite in that one. Miami 4-0, number 3 in the country. Florida State tripped the one time at Virginia, 18th now, and got their backs against the wall. So it should be a great ball game. Go Canes. Got to get that in.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I'm looking for a great game Saturday night, and I'm looking for a great game from you guys Friday night. Back to wrap up the program. It's the Brantford Coaches Show. Back after this on rivercountrysports.com.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Van Carpet One. For 78 years, we've been your local family-owned and operated floor covering store, and we can't wait to serve you. Let's go check out some of the stuff we've got and say hey to the guys.
Hey guys, this is Michael Van here at Van Carpet One. Wanted to show you our huge display of carpet. Got about 1,000 rolls for you that we can order. We also keep about 100 in stock that are on clearance, so please come down and give us a visit. We appreciate it.
Come in and see the largest tile collection in North Florida. Van Carpet One has every tile you could possibly imagine. If you can't find it here, they don't make it. Guys, take a look at this. This is just some of our options in waterproof vinyl plank, where we have the largest selection anywhere around here, including over 70 pallets in stock, ready to go right now. Come in and see our fantastic selection of elegant hardwood too, followed up by fantastic service that you expect from a company like Van Carpet One.
Come on in and see us.
We can't wait to serve you. And that's a boom shakalaka.
You were there at the beginning. You stood behind me, guiding me through good times and bad, teaching me lessons I wouldn't appreciate until later, preparing me for the day when you couldn't be here. What you've given me, I'll carry wherever I go. And because of your planning, I know I'll go far.
Set your family up for life. Southern Farm Bureau Life Insurance. Your friends for life.
Farm Bureau Insurance, serving Florida for over 70 years. In Suwannee County, you'll find Farm Bureau in Brantford and in Live Oak. In Brantford on Drain Street, phone 935-1274. And in Live Oak on Dowling Avenue, call 362-1274. Real service, real people, Farm Bureau Insurance.
And back here on Coach's Corner, we've got Coach Tim Clark. Coach, I really appreciate your time coming in. I know you're busy. You had the JV game last night. You're getting ready for a game this Friday, but we really appreciate your time here on River Country.
well, I appreciate you guys having me.
Okay. Want to wish you good luck in the game tomorrow at Interlochen, or the game Friday at Interlochen. I think what do I know? But I think the Bucks are going to string together 3 wins in a row. That's my prediction.
I hope you're right.
Okay. Well, good luck in that one, Coach.
All right, thank you.
That's going to wrap up this edition of the Buccaneers Coaches Show. Want to thank our sponsors, Farm Bureau Insurance, also Van Carpet One, and the Suwannee County School District. Tammy Neal has been our executive producer. Our streaming producer has been Dusty Morgan, also operating our cameras tonight. For Coach Tim Clark, I'm Wayne Littrell. Go Bucks. We'll see you Friday night.